Yeah, it's a really quick meeting. We're going to call the meeting to order. All right, can everyone stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now, the Board of Education would like to hold a moment of silence in memory of high school teacher David Engel, who passed away on August 24th, 2024, and Louis Stanton, member of the class of 2025, who passed away on September 9th, 2024. Thank you. I know it's been a hard first couple of weeks for everyone in our school community, and I just want to say to everyone at the high school, co-workers of Mr. Engel, and folks who knew Louis Stanton, the board is thinking of you and sending our deepest condolences and sympathy. Item 1.04, approval of revision of agenda. We do need to revise and remove item 5.07. So we will just do that. Is there any other approvals or revisions for the agenda that are needed? Okay. Item 1.05, recognition. So Dr. Tice and I are going to come up to the podium and recognize some great staff members for achieving tenure. And also I just wanted to, since it's our first meeting of the new school year, recognize our incredible buildings and grounds staff who got this school looking actually absolutely spectacular, especially with all of the construction that's been going on. So thank you to all of them, and for everybody who has made the welcome back for all of our students incredibly welcoming, and I heard very positive things along the way. So now we will recognize these teachers. Okay. Well, we have a great crowd in here today, and I'm sure it's not just for our really exciting agenda. So we just want to take a moment and call up all of the teachers for their accomplishment in achieving tenure. To earn tenure, teachers must complete a probationary period, receive effectiveness ratings for each probationary year, and receive a recommendation from the superintendent. So when I call your name, if you're present, if you'd like to come down, we have a small gift from the Board of Education to congratulate you. So Elizabeth Angel Estro. Emily Anna Carrico. Well, thank you to Sandy for helping. Jacqueline Corbett. She's not here. Kelly Christofoli. Go slow. I think your husband's trying. Oh, congratulations. Sharon DeFusco. Trying not to trip on all these cords over here. Kim Fuller. Kendra Naparella Myers. Sarah Shaheen. And Sarah Willard. There were two Sarahs. And just a round of applause for all of our tenured teachers. Thank you. Have a good night, everybody. Oh, we'll try not to. Okay, we're moving on to item 2.01. We're going to have a presentation for our special education audit.
Certainly, at this time, we'd like to welcome, and I think he's online, right? We heard the Wizard of Oz voice, although we call him Uncle Bob among the administrators. But Bob conducted a special ed audit last year and reported out to the administrative council during this summer's convocation. And we all thought it would be appropriate if he could summarize basically his executive summary from the summer with all of you today. Bob has 35 years of experience in education, having served in leadership capacities in rural, suburban, and small city school districts as an elementary and secondary school counselor, middle school assistant principal, elementary principal, director of special education, assistant superintendent for pupil services, and until his retirement in June 2022, is a superintendent of the Salamanca City School District in New York. Bob has a wealth of experience as an educational turnaround specialist, facilitating substantial improvements in student achievement, strategic planning, school finances, construction, state and federal advocacy, leadership transitions, hiring, mentoring, and contract negotiations. In addition to working as a public school educator, Bob has been an advocate, presenter, leader at national, state, and local levels. He also serves as a lead program evaluator with Cognia and a consultant with WASED, RX5, Cybersecurity Workforce Initiative, and as the executive director of the New York Association for Small City School Districts. So without further ado, and hopefully the technology will work, we'll turn it over to Bob and Sandy.
Thank you very much. Just as a process check, can everyone hear me okay? And Okay, all right. I just want to double check. Dr. Tice and members of the board, thank you so much for the invitation to be here. And I just want to say that how a district grieves and how a district celebrates speaks volumes about your organization. And please accept my condolences for your loss and my congratulations to your staff members who are working exceptionally hard for the students of your district. I'm going to kind of jump through this fairly quickly. And one of the things that I think is important is if you give a retired superintendent the microphone, brief and short typically don't happen too often. So I'm going to do my best to go through the audit and the results that we found. And similar to Stephen Covey's work, I'll start with the end in mind. After auditing approximately 11 districts at the time of this audit, and now working with 5 additional districts in the past 18 months, the FM system is doing an exceptionally fine job in meeting the needs of students with disabilities. There is a strong foundation of trust and collaboration within your system. That is something that you should and can celebrate with pride and be an envy and a shining example to your neighbors and peers, not just within the region, but across the state. Looking at the findings, there is some exceptionally positive work that is being done. And through the findings, there is some work in areas where the district can continue its positive progress in meeting the needs with students with disabilities. This includes increasing the knowledge base of your staff and your administration, building upon strong instructional processes that already exist, keeping lines of communication open, and investing in professional development with a high degree of efficiency to drive positive results for your neediest students and the staff who serve them. In looking at the study, we came out with 4 executive summary survey points of focus, and those are briefly compliance, capacity, common sense understandings, and leadership opportunities within the system. Looking at your compliance, there were no material compliance concerns that would cause myself or the audit team to be concerned about legal implications or potential pending lawsuits or litigation. The fact that the district is aware of its needs of its students, and how to best implement programs that provide meaningful benefit suggests strongly that the district is doing all of the right activities at all levels of the organization to maintain compliance with state, federal, and local requirements. There is some opportunity to look at how you calendar and how you schedule annual review meetings and triennial 3-year evaluations. But even looking at 50,000 data points, there were very, very, very limited instances where dates didn't align. You can expect in the near future that the state is likely to come out with more stringent recommendations on how districts can operate within the anniversary calendar schedule for services and evaluations. But by and large, the district is doing a fine, exemplary job of meeting those requirements. From a compliance perspective, 504 accommodation plans were not part of the original survey of work that we were going to do. But as we got into that and spoke with stakeholders, we realized that 504 plans, not just within your system and the district, but across the state, are growing at a proliferation level that should cause some concern for systems. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But compliance-wise, there were no concerns that the district should be concerned about. In terms of your capacity, there are capacity factors that are outside of your direct, immediate control, but areas where you can be aware of and take steps to mitigate any potential concerns with capacity. Again, one of the most prevalent factors is preschool special education programs, or CPSE programs. There is a significant concern across New York State, not just within your region or your district, about the availability of evaluators, service providers, and locations for preschool students under the age of 5 or pre-kindergarten age students from 2.5 to 5 years old before they enter kindergarten. That's not just a regional concern. We're seeing this across all of New York State. So to the extent that you can provide additional supports and resources for this program when they enter kindergarten, that will provide significant tangible benefits to your school district. As I mentioned, the annual review stressors are a concern, and that is something that I know the district is aware of and has had conversations post-audit. And a concern in terms of instruction, you'll hear a lot about professional development and see a lot of notations in the written report about professional development, but it also extends past that with collaboration time. And it's not just simply having teachers or staff members have the opportunities to engage in discussions. Discussions are critical and important, but actually planning the instruction rather than discussing instruction is a stressor and a potential risk area for all systems. So to the extent that your leadership team can provide dedicated, consistent time to collaborate and plan the instruction, that will yield high return on investment results for your students that are struggling and the staff that are providing those services. In terms of common sense solutions, professional development is where your bread and butter are really going to produce really significant results for your staff. And to the extent that you provide high quality professional development is something that you can be proud of because you're doing that to a large extent. But I would encourage the system to take a deeper look at it to provide differentiated professional development instruction in addition to the instruction that you're providing, which again is high quality as it stands during the audit. So to the extent that you can take that a little bit further and work with your staff and stakeholders to differentiate that based on the needs, based on the students that they're providing services to, would be an exemplary activity. And lastly, with leadership opportunities, the stakeholders clearly trust the leadership team in the district. The fact that you provided this audit when it wasn't a requirement speaks volumes of the district's commitment to excellence and providing valuable programs. And at the end of the audit, we were hearing some of the work about a new transition program and a community-wide partnership. Those are the things that will allow the district to continue to shine. In the audit, we looked at three critical questions: how well the department is doing to meet the needs of students, are students making progress, and do students have a good experience in school? And the answer overwhelmingly with all of those is yes, you are providing a meaningful, beneficial program to your students with disabilities and creating opportunities for growth and enrichment for your students with disabilities. When we did the audit, we looked at compliance, capacity, and common sense understandings, and we looked at a deep data dive within the system. We covered over 50,000 separate data points within your student management system. We redacted out all of the personally identifiable information, and we did a deep dive into analyzing your program bands, your program needs, location, duration, frequency, as well as the documents, the internal documents within the students' plans that speak incredibly well of your staff's commitment to excellence in creating a document that was both individualized and conveying maximum benefit to the students. When we looked at those data points, we looked at the consistency of how programs are implemented, where there are stressors within the system, and we found what we would expect to find. At times of transition, there are more stressors. And administratively, when students are transitioning, that's an opportunity for more professional development, more communication with parents and stakeholders and service providers, both within the district and outside of the district, to make sure those transitions run smoothly and effectively. We also interviewed a significant number of staff over a multiple day period of time within the district, and then had follow-up conversations individually with stakeholders as they continued to participate in the process over the late winter and early spring months. Interviews were about 30 to 60 minutes in length, sometimes a little bit longer, and it included all levels of stakeholders. Faculty, staff, service providers, administration, and parents. And during the parent process, we spent a little under 2 hours having conversation with parents about their experiences within the school district and their experiences as parents of children with disabilities. And in summary, with the interviews, they were incredibly meaningful in driving the conversation to support what the documentation and the data was telling us. They were honest, direct, collaborative conversations, and the team trusts and values the input of the other team members. We talked about compliance, and there were no significant concerns with compliance. I do want to take just a moment and talk about the data of capacity for the district. We looked at 14% of the active IEPs. We touched on 50,000 data points. And for that information, at the time of this audit, there were 234 504 plans with 25 pending, which suggests a 10% year-to-year growth in 504 plans. And that is a factor that I think does present a risk, or at least it should be an area of concern for the district. There were 137 preschool special ed placements with 19 pending. So just about 17% growth in your preschool programming, and a strong point of 436 active IEPs with 23 pending, or approximately 5% growth in your preschool or your school age programs, The program offerings do suggest a high level of degree of inclusivity, as well as the opportunities for students to participate with like age peers within your system. And there is a high level, and I mean high in the very positive terms of the offerings of speech language services in the district, which is not only a wise investment of resources, but a strong indicator of providing both appropriate pre-referral strategies for students that are struggling in school. And your speech therapists are doing a fantastic job, as are the occupational and physical therapists and the other therapists that serve some unique and highly individualized needs of your students with disabilities. There is an opportunity for growth, which we've shared with the administrative team about opportunities to grow and expand elective offerings at the secondary level. We've talked and have provided some opportunities for input into that. That does take a little bit of time because it involves scheduling and creating pathways for students with disabilities to participate in general ed programs to the best and greatest extent that they can. And lastly, I want to touch on the common sense understandings from the staff. Staff works exceptionally well. They care deeply about the students within the district. They are valuable members of the team, and they welcome input and feel that their input is welcomed and appreciated by administration. The stakeholders recognize that everyone is working exceptionally hard, and to the extent that they are willing to continue to work hard and do that work is a function of the culture and climate within the system. And that came across very loudly and clearly within the interview sessions with the stakeholders. Some areas of concerns that we did note where there are opportunities to expand the work that you're already doing is some dedicated time in more clearly articulating what the co-teaching model looks like within the buildings and the grade levels, transitioning to an anniversary schedule for your annual reviews. And for those who are not aware of what that looks like, instead of doing 436 IEPs, 137 preschool IEPs, and approximately 230 504s from March, April, May, and June, you spread those out over the course of the year. That allows for more detailed and more effective documents that are more reflective of students' needs, rather than trying to condense them all into what some districts call March Madness. I think that's going to be something that we're hearing whispers about at State Ed, that's going to be a little bit more directed from Albany towards districts to comply with the anniversary and the calendaring requirements of the Part 200 regulations. Your special class programs are doing a fantastic job of meeting the needs of highly needy children with disabilities. And that translates into the success factors that the school district and the stakeholders have very clearly articulated throughout this process. In closing, we did make some suggestions in the final report about opportunities for professional development, ongoing coaching within the for the administrative team and the service providers that are providing input and programming for the students with disabilities. And to the extent that the Schmidt Leadership Group and myself personally can provide support to the district, we're happy to provide support over this next coming school year.
Thank you, Bob. Board members, do you have any questions? Oh, go ahead, Ian.
I'm sorry, I never used a microphone before. Thank you for your presentation, Bob. I just have a couple questions. And for beginning, I'm really glad we're in compliance. That's something to really be happy about, right? But a couple questions include can you tell us a little bit more about how those interviews were conducted? Who was it? Oh, he's gone. Are you
Sure. So when we did the interviews, we met sometimes individually and we met sometimes in small groups. And that dealt more with scheduling and trying to mitigate any interferences with service delivery for the students or the programs. When we met, I explained to them what the process was and if you ask the staff, I hope that they will remember me saying this, that you as a board and the administrative team as a leadership governance team for the district has a right and an absolute urgent need to know what members of the field are saying, but they don't have any right to know who said it. And so we maintain the highest level of confidence to get information from staff. And I'd like to believe that those conversations were dynamic and genuine, and the staff was very much engaged in sharing with me and other members of the team that were participating on what they thought the district was doing well and where they thought there were opportunities for the district to do things a little bit more effectively and more efficiently within that process. One of the other things that I think was an important stress in all of the evaluations that I've done in my career, which is, a significant number, not just in the last 18 months, but my experience with approaching 40 years in pupil services is the way to effectively translate results within pupil services. It's not with a deficit mindset. If your speech therapy levels decrease because you have better scheduling, the first and immediate reaction of the systems that are less effective would be to cut speech therapist positions. I've espoused in my entire career that you should not be looking to cut those pre-referral, preventative, proactive services like speech and occupational therapy in the primary building. You could do that, but the risk is you will have more students with greater needs as they hit third and fourth grade, particularly if they have innate underlying learning disabilities. So during the course of the evaluation interviews, we had really dynamic conversations with faculty and staff members, and I felt that they were really genuinely engaged to try to make the system operate much more effectively.
Thank you. I have one more about the interviews. When it came to the interviews that you conducted with the parents, can you speak a little bit to how those looked, how many parents there were, how they were selected?
Sure. In the course of the conversation with the leadership team, we originally had talked about how we would be able to effectively engage parents in that process. There was an evening session that occurred, and there were, I think, about 10 parents that were able to come and attend. And we talked about referral strategies. We talked about their concerns. And I want to stress that while the overall results were very positive and a positive reflection on the school district, that doesn't mean that everybody was happy the entire time. They did share concerns about their experiences with special ed historically versus over the last 3 years. And there was a marked difference if you want to take a demarcation line in time of the last 4 years versus the previous to those most recent 4 years. How the parents were selected, I believe that the administrative team engaged with parents in how they came. I'd have to defer to the administrative team, but I do know that at every opportunity I provided my individual cell number to faculty, staff, and parents and encouraged them to share it with other individuals. And there were stakeholders that I didn't directly interview face to face that did reach out to share their concerns and their experiences within the department.
Thank you. Oh, sure.
Hello.
Hi,
Yes.
nice to see you. So that parent stakeholder group was actually already in formation because they were helping to develop the new transition program, and things were ahead of schedule with that program. So I asked if our already scheduled meeting could be given over to Bob. So that was the group he was able to interview. They were already in session that evening.
Any other, oh, go ahead, Cindy.
I should also note that we did spend a significant amount of time, and I may not have been clear, talking with the administrative team at the respective buildings about the stressors that they experience in implementing the programs, as well as their thoughts and concerns about what their immediate and long-term needs might be.
Hi, Bob. I have a quick question for you. Thank you for this presentation. It's very informative and really helpful, and I'm glad we're doing well. We're also going to be talking tonight about class sizes in our buildings. And my question to you is, when you are looking at our programs, do you suggest smaller class sizes for inclusion with our students so that they have their needs met the best? Or would you suggest more aides in the classrooms?
I think that's a great question that doesn't have, in my experiences, a direct answer. So I'm going to do my best to try to kind of frame it in options for you. Obviously, low class size is helpful in dealing with individual students that are either need to accelerate their learning because of their capacity or need to have their instructional needs remediated because of deficiencies and deficits that are existing when looking at the traditional school population. There is a metric that I found in my career that if class sizes get below 12 or 13 or 14, that has, in my experience, has not yielded the most positive results because you don't get those dynamic interactions. Similarly, if class sizes, particularly at the primary level, exceed 18, 19, or 20, then that allows for limited individualization and customization and one-on-one time with the teacher. To the extent that teacher aides or teacher assistants, depending upon which pathway you would go as a district, I think having additional supports in the classroom is helpful, but there is a deficiency in finding individuals that can provide the type of instructional support that's necessary. So if you ask me my professional opinion, the best way to maximize that would be to keep class sizes at a reasonable level within your community. You know that better based on your individual demographics. I didn't really look at that, but to the extent that you can push in additional supports to the classroom, whether it's reading teachers or speech therapists to do whole group language or phonics instruction, or even in my elementary school as a principal, I pushed in occupational therapists to kindergarten and first grade to help students learn those fine motor skills, which translated several years down the road to higher and elevated test scores within English language arts because they had better capacity to perform the writing tasks that we were expecting them of third through fifth graders in our building at that time. The last thing I would add to that in terms of the interventions and supports, I think absent class sizes, what seems to translate to provide productive, consistent, sustainable results is allowing your instructional staff and your classes to have consistent bands of achievement and instruction. And in a special ed classroom, if you have 3rd through 5th grade students, you could have academic skill levels that are well beyond their age ranges. So looking at how you cluster and group students is something that I think can provide more maximized benefits for instruction, particularly for students that are struggling with the attainment of academic skill sets. There isn't a quick, easy answer, but you should be looking at all 3 or 4 of those elements that you discussed. And does this model work with this age and population of students that you're currently having? And hopefully with those intervention supports, those needs will decrease over time.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the board? Amy, I would just like to add, I think it's great that you sought out an external audit, because I know there's, I guess, historically always been a perception, real or not, or some in between, about our level of special ed services in the district. And so I think it's always good to get an independent view of how things are going. So I think I applaud you for that, and I think that's great.
So thank you to the board for approving
Thank
the
you.
audit, and thank you, Bob, for conducting it and answering all of my crazy questions at any time, and listening to me spout off ideas. So thank you.
We're here to help anytime.
Thanks.
So I do just have one question, and Bob, thank you for that, but I think my question is less for you than it is for Amy and Dr. Tice. Is your normal flow when we have a review or of an audit done is it's great to have all that information, but then there's an action plan. And I know you've had this for quite a while now. I would be very interested to see what the action plan is that was developed, if it has been yet, or when it is, based on this report.
So part of it was in the special education plan that I went over in June. Bob was wonderful in providing feedback throughout the audit. So some of the strategies began before the audit plan was even out, such as changing our related services model from a weekly to a monthly. We are on the pathway to moving to anniversary date. It's a huge, heavy lift. We are doing that. And certainly I heard the questions about the consultant teacher classrooms and the sizes, and we had a lot of conversation about that, and Bob was a great listener and guide. So that you would have seen in the plan, most districts have about 10 students with IEPs in the classrooms for consultant teacher. There's also no mandated teaching assistants assigned to those programs. We have kept them at, we've said about 6 students. When the special education teacher is not in the room, we have hired a teaching assistant to be in the room. Some of our rooms who may have some greater needs have also a part-time special ed TA and a full-time. But I think our largest room has 5 students, and we have some with 3, so our numbers are pretty low. But yes, I can share further with you at a later date. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you. And now we're moving on to item 2. Oh, thank you, Bob.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Item 2.02, a presentation from Lisa Wade on our statistical report, part 1, enrollment data.
There we go. All right, thank you for the opportunity to present to you this evening. I sort of changed the format up this year of the presentation, so I welcome your feedback in terms of how we've laid out the slides and the data to show you. So I look forward to receiving your feedback on that. The photos in the presentation are our students. I grabbed them from the website, so you'll see our students throughout the presentation as well. All right, the top items that I'm going to present tonight, we're going to start with the new or the promoted administrators and instructional hires. Then we're going to talk about some of our student enrollment trends. Then we will look at the sections, enrollment, and ratios. Then we'll review the teaching assistants and the teacher aides. And then 5 and 6, we're going to look at some of the board goals and the strategic plan and how, when we look at staff, how we are taking some of those board goals and strategic plan initiatives and implementing those as far as personalized learning for our staff, as well as a DEI focus on staff. So this year we did add the administrative positions that were filled. In previous years, we didn't identify the number of administrative positions filled, and I'd like to add that going forward. We hired 30 teaching and ancillary staff for this school year. Last year we hired 23. This year we have 27 probationary appointments, and last year we had 18. We have 9 regular subs and or long-term subs. We had 5 last year. And 12 of our openings were due to administrator or teacher retirements, and we had 6 in 23. 9 of the teachers who resigned for various reasons are indicated on the slide, those reasons why they decided to resign. And something new that we implemented as part of our listening and hearing from the board and from administrators, we put in place an exit checklist, and we tried to do exit checklists and piloted that with our administrators last year. This year, we've implemented it across the board. So any staff member exiting the district, we're going to be collecting more data from them in terms of the reason why and what are some of the things we could have done better to help support them. So that's an initiative that we are continuing to move forward. Of our new hired teachers, of the 30 individuals hired, 86% of the teachers hired already hold a master's degree, 91% last year. This year, our cohort has an average of 10 years of teaching experience prior to starting their employment here at FM. Last year, 14.3 years. And this year, 2 of our teachers hired moved from other states. One moved from Ohio and another moved from Florida and relocated here. So this slide, we used to see last year in the presentation that we shared the actual numbers. And so we've added in a trend line at the top. We've also added in the breakouts for each of the buildings. And that way you have a chart as well as sort of a scale in terms of where we're at. The trend line, we currently have 4,225 students, which overall is down 37 students from last year. All of our data was pulled last Monday, September 9th, so the data we'll be presenting is as of last Monday. Our kindergarten enrollment has increased, so we're up by 22 students, and you'll see that we are now at 281 students in our kindergarten classes. Enders and Fayetteville went up by 3 students, and Mott Road went up by 16 students. We ended up creating another section for kindergarten at Mott Road because of that increase in the number of students that we saw. This slide here has all of our levels. So we did 3 different charts to show you the UPK and the elementary students. So we've broken K to 4 with the UPK, and UPK is tied to Mott Road, but the students are not attending Mott Road. I think we discussed that previously, but they're actually tied to Mott. We have a total of 1,599 overall elementary and UPK students in the district as of September 9th. For middle school students, our enrollment is up to 1,277 students. And again, we've broken them down by the 2 middle schools and then the grade levels for each. And then high school, we are up to 1,349 students. And again, breaking it down by the grade levels for a total of 4,225 and overall down 37 students. So this is a new slide that we put in this year. In previous years, we have put in the sections and you had the enrollment, but the ask from the board, and this is our first attempt at kind of taking in this data and then producing for you the ratios. The ratios are in alignment with the FMTA contract limits. None of our classes have met any of the limits. Because if they do, we would absolutely be creating another section, or we would have to shift students from one building to another. As I mentioned in the kindergarten, we had to create another section, and as we kept looking at numbers over the summer, we went from 4 to 5 sections. That took Mott Road to capacity. There was no additional classroom space for any additional classes at Mott Road. And again, we start this, for budget purposes, we start looking at sections, looking at historical information, and looking at where we're headed for the next school year. Usually early February or so, we're giving Brad some estimates, looking at the next school year and where we think our enrollment is going to go. Over the summer, Sandy does a great job. We look at the enrollment every single week, watching those trends for those students who are new coming to the district, new registrants, as well as those students who are projected to exit the district. Maybe they moved out of the district area and we're anticipating that they are leaving. So we continue to wait for student record requests for students leaving. But what happened in first grade at Mott Road, you see they got pretty close with their ratio to 22.5. They're close because we anticipated that the maximum number of first grade students in all of our projections and in everything we looked at was going to be 87. We had many more students enroll over the summer than we had projected. And so we got to a point where Lisa and I were having conversations every day right up to the start of school that if any additional students came in to register for the first grade, we were going to shift them to Fayetteville because Fayetteville had some capacity with 5 sections. We could have potentially looked at Enders 2 if we needed, but thankfully we didn't get to that point. And again, second grade stayed within the ratios, and we didn't have any concern there. Then we take the grades 3 to 5, which is the next chart on the bottom, and those limits in the FMTA contract are 25 students. So taking that newly negotiated item, which it used to be covered under a Phil Martin memo, saying these were the class sizes we should be respectful of keeping. We negotiated that into the last round of the FMTA contract. So as you can see, grades 3 to 6, we are still under the max numbers for each of those student numbers. Then when we started to get to the middle school, the FMTA contract says that classes cannot be more than 125 students per day, and that may be based on a 5 or a 6 class per day period, or 750 students per week, 7 to 12. So again, we took 7th and 8th grade and divided the total enrollment by the 8 primary teachers that were teaching those classes, and that's where we get this ratio. 9 to 12, it got a little difficult where we were not able to continue to use just the overall numbers for sections as well as the enrollment because there's over 200 courses at the high school. Some of those are electives, which may have a smaller number. Some are Regents, some are AP, some are SUPA. So the varying degree of high school sections that we have, that would definitely take us a lot more analytical work and a lot more time to focus on and work on. For this year's presentation, I reached out to Heidi and Pat to see if they had any other way of thinking about how we could approach this. And we really couldn't come up with something to be able to present tonight that would be, to be able to explain all those 200 course electives that we have. But interestingly enough, August 14th, Syracuse.com, there was an article that was presented, and I reached out to the author of the article and asked him where the data came from, but let me click on it. Hopefully we can open this if you haven't had a chance to look at it yet. And he shared with me that the data is from 22-23, and it's from the New York State Ed Department website. That's where he gets his data, so he showed me where he got the data, and he shared with me that these are 2 years back. So now we're looking at old data, but if you scroll to the bottom of the article, there's a nice tool that's in here. We'll go to the bottom. And let's see, did I miss it? Here it is. So if we take the tool and we type in our school district, and we select our county, and if we wanted to look at Algebra 1, there's a number of classes that they have, that they've put in this tool. And then if we want to do a search, Fayetteville-Manlius, Algebra 1, Common Core, 18 students is an average class size. And you can continue if you want to look at the tool and kind of study this and start to look at it. Hopefully we can get to this place as we continue to analyze and look at it. But it was very interesting that, he wrote this article. It was very timely too. So if we do a search again, if we want to look at chemistry, we can pull up chemistry and do a search. And Fayetteville-Manlius, 24 students is the average class size. So again, this is just a tool because we were not able to break it down for you for this presentation today, but it does give you a tool to start showing that, hopefully we can get to this point someday with our data here. And so let me go out of here and go back to our presentation. I don't want to spend too much time on that, but hopefully you'll find that helpful. And this was also a new ask, and thank you to Amy and to Tracy. They put this together for us for this evening's presentation. We have now highlighted the teaching assistants and the teacher aides that we have for the 2024-25 school year. And hopefully this gave us a starting place based on the board's request of what you were looking to see. Amy broke out the teaching assistants by the special areas like special ed TAs, K-1 TAs, part-time special ed TAs, computer lab, and testing center. So we have a total of 97 TAs for this school year. On the right-hand side, we just showed the new hires as well as any vacancies that we have, but those are included in the 97. And then at the bottom, that contains the teacher aide or supervision aides for the school year. And again, we are at 47, and that includes the new hires and any vacancies. So hopefully that gave us a starting point based on the board's request wanting to see this data. All right, something new I included this year is I thought it might be helpful for you to see the number of applicants that we had for the administrative positions, as well as the instructional staff applicants for each of the subject areas that we posted. The chart is pretty telling. You can see where we have plentiful applicants. Our elementary teachers, for example, 159 applicants in the elementary teaching area. And yet you can see where there's a limited applicant pool. The foreign languages, technology, very limited applicants still. I am proud to let you know that 100% of our teachers are certified. 100% of our administrators are certified. So we do look for that as part of our criteria as well, not only having, qualified candidates, but having that New York State certificate in hand as well. Oh, there we go. So as I mentioned, professional learning and support for staff, our focus, from the board and our strategic plan should be focused on students, and it really is, but there's also an opportunity here for us to take some of the goals that we have and focus those on the staff. And that's what we've been trying to do, is apply them to the staff as well. We have started personalized or individualized professional learning opportunities for our staff. We held a substitute professional development on August 27th, which was very well received, and we received a lot of positive feedback from the substitutes who attended that. We're looking to repeat that training in November for those who were not able to attend. We've also assigned emails and launched mandatory training to the coaches and the substitutes. So we do want to continue to show our staff that we appreciate and we value them, and we're going to treat them and recognize all staff for the various jobs that they do and continue to listen to them and provide feedback that hopefully addresses their needs. We're going to continue to explore obtaining ID badges for our substitutes. That was something that they echoed at the professional development, that they'd like to have that ID badge to recognize them again as a staff member and be able to get into the buildings in a timely manner. So we're working on that as well. As you may know, we negotiated career ladder opportunities into some of our contracts, and this was geared at efforts to try to encourage professional growth and learning, as well as to grow our own program in terms of filling our future teachers, ancillary staff, and/or administrative positions. We've also asked our leaders to invite Krause Help People to all of their faculty meetings this year. We did that with a focus on the staff's mental health and their wellness. Just as important, we know our students, we want to make sure that their needs are met. Our staff, too, we want to make sure that their needs are met. And then looking at the lens with diversity, equity, and inclusion and focusing it on staff, we want all of our work environments to be welcoming and affirming for everyone. Again, we negotiated contract language that was inclusive of all staff, and it contains gender-neutral terminology. We've been reflecting on our hiring practices and inviting more staff to participate in the interview processes for instructional and administrative hiring. We've hired some diverse candidates this year for our teaching positions and administrative roles. 40% of our new hires, of the 30 that were hired, were from communities outside of our FM neighborhoods. 0.06% of our new hires are diverse staff, which is very good because across the district we only had 0.02% of all of our instructional staff were of diverse backgrounds. So we're making progress, we're looking at the data, and we're going to continue to do our best to focus on making changes. Then in terms of trying to work on our improvement for communications and create greater community awareness of our FM hiring opportunities, we are implementing an HR news and notes bulletin. We're going to send that out to staff that will announce vacancies, the board-approved staff appointments, resignations, retirements, or upcoming reminders or dates that are coming up. So we're working on that. And then continue to use our social media. The communications team here is amazing. And any of our job openings that we ask them to post out or to put out on social media, they're incredible. They do a great job. So we're going to continue to do that to continue to improve our communications and awareness of our job openings. And then we've looked at taking some of the feedback from our RMS staff survey. We've been having listening sessions, and we conducted one in June with our bus attendants and the UPSEU union leadership team, which was great because then we listened to them. We heard some of the things that we could fix immediately and address, and thanks to Amy and Brad, we actually addressed a question that came up with the bus attendants about knowing students' needs when they're on the bus, and how does that information get to them, and if there's medical needs, how do they know that? So immediately we addressed that to make sure that they have the information that they need or that they seek parent approval to share that information. So we're going to continue with our listening sessions with staff and parents. As we shared last year, we want to gain feedback on the newly appointed principals. So that's going to be some of the next sessions that we will be scheduling out to hear from both our staff and parents. And then listening to staff just to create additional opportunities for inclusion, training, support, all aimed at retention efforts and having our staff, again, feel valued, appreciated, and want to stay here at FM for their entire career. Any questions?
Thank you, Lisa. Board members have any questions?
Yes, I had two questions. My first one was on this, regarding interviews. So I noticed that like for psychologists, there were 6 candidates, one interview, and then was like chemistry, 25, one interview. Is that because of certifications? Why you only interviewed like one when there were like 25 applications, or was it just because the pool was not very good?
Let's see, so psychologist, 6 applied. We interviewed 1 and we hired 1, so I'm gonna phone a friend.
Just curious as to like,
Amy,
so there were a
could
couple
you-
of them like that.
Okay, could you assist with this one?
Thank you.
I know some of the applicants may not have had the certification as well, but Amy can help. Thank you, phone a friend.
Sure, thanks. What are we gonna win?
I know, right?
So for that specific role, it is a very high need area. Districts are really struggling to get applicants. In fact, when I called to do some checks around the area, some districts had 0 applicants, some had 1. So we were fortunate, but in the time it took us to set up interviews, which was a very short time, candidates had gone to other districts. There were some that had not had their full certification yet. We have a wonderful one that we hired, so we were very fortunate.
Okay, thank you. And then my other question was in regards to the class sizes. So I was glad to see that we're not at what the contract limits have for us. But is there conversation regarding whether or not we're still comfortable with those class sizes? So 23, I believe it was for K2, and 25 for 3 through 6. Are we having conversation about whether or not that is actually the number that we want to set as our limit, or do we want to have or try to target smaller class sizes? 'Cause just from being in the classroom, it's a lot of students, especially when you have the little ones to manage. So I'm wondering, are there any conversations about that?
We really haven't engaged in any conversation, and if it's the board's wished for us to study that and look at it. I know that there was a study done previous to my appointment. Jeff Gordon had shared with me that a study had been done a few years back to look at class sizes, particularly at those primary grades. So we could resurrect that, but we could also continue to do that research, and if that's, the decision of the board. And but I'm also cautious about our capacity, which is another facilities issue, but
Right,
but
yes.
to study it, I mean, certainly.
And I'm looking at it from the perspective of how does it impact learning to have the higher
Right.
class sizes. I can't remember what Jeff's exact study was. I think it was just like looking, it might have been more from a facilities standpoint of like how many kids we had and positioning them. I don't remember.
Right.
But I'm concerned about like how is it impacting learning
Right.
for the students to have the 23 and the 25, class sizes. So from that perspective, that would be my interest personally.
Okay.
Yeah, it almost seems like we need to look at the data on a layered viewpoint. So like, the class size and enrollment data is one slice, but then like special ed data and, looking at our achievement data, it'd be nice if you could sort of
Layer it.
put them all together to find out, is this class size that we're working with, is it okay for our student population? Or are we finding that we're having, kids are struggling more in certain grades where there's the higher class sizes and the teachers, maybe we're finding more burnout with staff, or, this is a great one set of data, but it's very narrow, and that's, I feel like as a board, maybe we should be looking at kind of a more holistic view of all this data, because it's hard to know how it sits.
And you're right, it's absolutely in competition with each other because the buildings have set sizes. So
Right.
Mr. Gordon was back here with that study. He'd remind us that we'd like everything to be as low as possible, but eventually, given some of the special ed projects we're doing in special areas, it's always in competition, so.
In my experience, the only data that I've seen or any direction from the state, the governor made a directive to the city schools, but the cities were to look at trying to bring their ratios down to 20. So I haven't seen anything other than that, but we can continue to research that.
Yeah,
and
the
look at
class
it.
size reduction money, which you're
Right.
remembering fondly, was for
Right.
grades K1 and 2
Right.
to be 20 or less at those
Right,
levels
correct.
because of learning to read.
All right, so thanks, Lisa. So this is going to be a common theme, I think, in many of the questions, because mine is also on class sizes. So we can talk about studies and we can go read studies, but what I've heard very consistently from teachers across our district at virtually every level is that the class sizes are too big. And at the same, and so that's, left hand. Right hand is this inescapable truth that our buildings are full. So it is a challenge, but the biggest interest and most important interest is always going to be about the students and what's best for them in this learning environment. So I have a couple of questions. One is just, I didn't go back to the previous presentations from the prior year to pull data out to them. So, I see your charts and what the enrollment history has been in, say, for example, in Mott Road for total building. And I have the average class size for Mott Road for each of the grades on this. But do you have the longitudinal data for what the average class size has been, for example, in Mott for the last 8 or 10 years? Because the section numbers have changed. So just looking at total numbers doesn't tell us much about what the class size numbers were. We have to know the section number. So if there would be a way to show that longitudinally of not just what the building is, but how many sections and just what were the average class sizes per grade. Are we increasing? Are we fluctuating meaningfully? Is there consistency? My sense is we've been going up, but it's my sense. I just don't have that data unless I went through and pulled that individually from these reports from each year. My big picture concern is we're full, and that's a problem. And obviously we all know sitting at this table that we have significant facilities challenges in this district in terms of space and capacity. But as we hear on top of the presentation that we had just preceding this one, if 504 numbers are going up and IEP numbers are going up, then those classrooms are harder. The level of instruction, the level of need per student is higher, which means we should be working toward lower numbers, not higher numbers. But one of the things that would well inform that or better inform that is we had talked about having another study done on a population forecast study. I'm curious where, I know we had talked about an RFP going out on that. I'm curious to know where that is, because my sense, again, where the trends are going to be going, Micron, et cetera, and what's going to happen is that we're not going to be seeing a decrease. But I think that plays into this, but I think we can't just keep saying capacity is our problem. If we have to find a way, and you, Dr. Tice, you know this, you've said it before, it's not a, if you build it, they will come. It's funding is a massive challenge, and I understand that, but we have to be able to provide the right classroom sizes for the students, for the teachers. And if it means we have to find ways to do additional things in the buildings to create capacity, then we're just going to frankly have to do that. Big undertaking for the community. Community needs to know about that. But if you could help with that longitudinal data, that may help inform some of the decision processing on that.
I know it doesn't exist in the past presentations. This is the first time we've really took a snapshot of the ratios. So it did not exist previously, so that would certainly take some research and analytical digging.
Can we find an intern somewhere, a volunteer
That's what I
intern
was
who would
thinking.
love some hours? One of
Right.
the high school students that is interested in statistics and that could help pull this together, I think would help. Look, it would look really good for them. Some of them would be very interested in it, but it would be super helpful to us.
Lisa, I just wanted to say it's a monumental task that you've accomplished. I know you had a couple of accomplices because you named them, but thank you for all of this information.
You're
I think it's
welcome.
quite a bit more than last year. And we also have to consider our budget. We keep talking about how our budget can't keep going up and up and up, but we know, and forgive me, Mary and Denise, our most expensive, factor in our budget is faculty. There, I said it.
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
Well,
yeah,
it's good that,
we'll try to.
it's good for us to talk about.
I guess-
Don't ruin the surprise. I think he's getting me a school.
Lisa, to go back to Marissa's question about, where we have these areas where we had, one interview and someone was hired, I'm hopeful that maybe in all those circumstances, we had a diamond in the rough and that one interview was a fantastic candidate, and I'm sure that was the case. But I do appreciate that we're trying to do some things differently from professional development. But I guess I'm just, given the reality that there's, in general, teacher shortages across the board in the state, are we looking at ways that we can help provide additional mentoring or supports for our new teachers? And also, we're really helping to review them and assess and work with them to make sure that they're being successful when they're new here and getting them acclimated. And I'm just curious if that's something that you're looking into or in general is a focus area.
John Durkee proposed to us, and we met with the FMTA about a mentor program and actually training our mentors to actually be better supports for the new teachers, having ongoing topics that might come up monthly, addressing things as they come up that maybe are not on the agenda, but to provide additional resources and support. So we have been working with the FMTA. John had some ideas about a program that we could put in place. So we are exploring that. Yep, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah.
So, Lisa, as we've talked about, and we've heard time and again, all the buildings are close to capacity. For any families that may be looking to move into the districts, I know in the past we have told folks no matter where you move in the district, this particular grade level at this particular building is full, so your child can't attend, even though your house might be mapped towards there. Do we have that issue right now for this year with any grades, with any buildings?
We were close to Mott, as I indicated. Sandy had a flyer ready to go on the website. We were ready to post it at the school. We were going to post it at the district office saying first grade is closed and we're at capacity at Mott Road. For any new registrants, you will have to be placed at another building, which doesn't always feel good, but if they're coming new to the district in first grade, then if they could stay either in the building that they get appointed to and they don't have to keep changing back and forth, unless for some reason that parent does want them back at Mott Road, we would have to continue to look at that and continue to look at enrollment. But we were there. We were prepared to put out the posting and close the enrollment. Yeah. That was close. Good question.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome. And I'm going to just leave this with a thought from our little bets. I'm going to just put this up. The key to success is not to avoid failure, but to embrace it as a stepping stone to greatness. So as we continue to look at things differently and try things differently, we'll keep taking those little bets and moving forward. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay. Item 2.03, Superintendent's Report.
Thank you, President Fitzgerald. My superintendent's report is in board docs for you as backup information. Item 1, opening of the new school year. I'd like to publicly thank all of the members of our buildings and grounds staff for their extraordinary efforts to prepare our 6 school buildings, and especially FM High School, for the arrival of the students, faculty, and staff. Their Herculean efforts did not go unnoticed, especially in that they had to double down on their endeavors at the end of the summer when the contractors were wrapping up important utility work linking House 1 to House 2. I would ask the entire governance team to join me in a round of applause for all of our employees from all departments who really helped to make the school ready for the opening of school this September. Item next, capital project update. The high school construction project continues to move forward with the contractors refocusing their attention to the knuckle of the building, which includes the new photography classroom, the auxiliary gymnasium, wellness center, student learning support center, and the foundational walls that will support the newly expanded and enlarged cafeteria. While soft openings have allowed students and staff to occupy the new technology classrooms, the nurses' suite, faculty lounge, retrofitted conference rooms, and a large portion of the new main office, it is self-evident that much work remains in the rest of the building. With approximately 15 months of the projected 40-month project now in the rearview mirror, please remember that it will take time, that we will take some time to celebrate the official grand openings and to offer community tours sometime in the future in order to properly celebrate the ceremonial milestones of this massive project. I had the pleasure of attending the FM High School open house last week, and I know many of the families in attendance marveled at the upgrades that have been completed and took notice of the work that is currently underway. And then last but not least, the special announcement. It's with mixed emotions that I inform you that at a specified date to be determined by the governance team and yours truly, in the future, I will retire from my position as superintendent of schools for the Fayetteville-Manlius Central School District during the 2025-26 school year. While this decision is bittersweet because I have loved my time at FM, I know that it's just as important to honor the transitional planning efforts by providing the requisite retirement notice stipulated in the recent addendum to my employment contract. This will allow the Board of Education sufficient time to conduct a thorough and comprehensive search for a replacement for the 2025-26 school year. It goes without saying that I have thoroughly enjoyed my nearly 10 years of service to the FM district. While many of the duties and responsibilities and projects have been professionally enriching, it has been the relationships and friendships that I developed over the years with the students, their families, and my fellow employees that have been the most meaningful and rewarding. To this day, I remain humbled to be entrusted with the care and stewardship of the FM Central School District. In closing, please know it's been a distinct honor and privilege to serve as your chief school administrator. Rest assured that FM will always occupy a special place in my heart. That ends my report.
Dr. Tice, on behalf of the whole board, we just want to congratulate you and thank you for your service to this district, and appreciate that you have been able to give the board advance notice so that we can conduct a very thorough search and make sure we find an exemplary candidate. But we still have lots of work to do over the next year and a half, 2 years. So we're not letting you off the hook yet, and we are excited to partner with you through this period. So thank you very much and congratulations. This is great. Anybody else have any questions or comments for Dr. Tice on his report?
Sure. I'm the last one here that was on the on the board that hired you, Dr. Tice, and it was a very good decision that we made. And not going to make a speech because you have a lot of work left to do, but yeah, it is with mixed emotions to hear that you're leaving us. But I'm so glad that you've been here. I'm glad to call you our superintendent, and I look forward to see how you're going to leave, what you're going to do. So. I mean, well, don't do too much.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you. Item 2.04, President's Report. So related to Dr. Tice's report, we will be releasing a statement from the board tomorrow morning, so that will be coming out. And for any staff, community members, students who might be tuning in, please rest assured that this board is very ready and willing and capable of embarking on this search process. And we've already started the process of talking about the next stages, and we are going to be keeping folks informed of our process as we go forward. So we're going to try to be as open and transparent through the process, and we'd love to gauge and gather input along the way as needed. So thank you. The other item that I wanted to mention, I think there's going to be more information coming out, and Dr. Tice, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's very exciting that the district is re-engaging the big read for the district, and they're going to be doing the book Never Enough. So any board members who have not already read that book, it's a great one, and I would encourage everybody to do that. It's specifically relevant for our district because it's for high achieving cultures, and it gives a lot of actionable things that both families, teachers, students, any support individuals can do to help with stresses that come from a high achieving culture. So I think they're kicking that off October 29th. So I think more information is going to be coming out, but just want to make sure if you guys weren't aware of that, to keep you informed. And that is all.
Sarah, question for you. So I know we're releasing a statement tomorrow. Can we have that on the website under a section entitled Superintendent Search? Because as we go and as we progress, people are going to be looking for more information and looking back and looking forward. And I know we all want to be very transparent about the process and make sure people can have the information. So would it be possible to start a section on the website called Superintendent Search, and so that information is all right there that people can access it?
I think that's a great idea. We can talk to the communications folks and see how they could find a location for that.
Yeah, we had talked about it already. I mean, to start with an article and then pushing it out with Parent Square to all the families, and then starting exactly as you said, the superintendent search, which will be populated as the process goes along.
Okay, item 2.05, reports from the committee and representation. Legislative liaison, Daryl.
Thanks, Sarah. At the invitation of the policy committee, I joined them, and we went through the, 34 proposals, 25 of which the NYSBA is recommending that we support, and 12 of which they have decided that they would not support. And we went through them one by one. We really went through all 34 of them, and we came to the conclusion that we are in agreement with NYSBA. And so, failing any of your comments or amendments, if any of you I know you've all read through them, but if you have a comment or an amendment you'd like, we could discuss, and I have till the 20th to submit any changes that you wish. But I did reach out to our assistant superintendent for special projects and Amy was a great help to me because several of these have to do with ELLs, and nice to tell, and she was a great help. So we definitely want to support those. And one of the other things that I thought of when we were talking about retaining our teachers, and I know Lisa knows this, but one of the proposals is to collapse or eliminate Tier 6. It's hard for these young people to think of working 30 years for, a pittance when they finish. So I think that's something we really strongly want to encourage or support. So if there are not any other questions, I'll be on the phone with them on the 10th for all hours. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Well, I just want to thank you for your time and your leadership on this, because you're a great person to lead us forward with these
Thank you.
resolutions.
I'm happy to do it. It's very interesting to me, so thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate the work that you did, Daryl, and going through the policy committee, I think was a great process. And on agenda 5.08, we're going to give an opportunity for all board members if there's anything different that you would like to raise with regards to the resolutions. We can talk about it also at that point. So thank you, Daryl. Appreciate it. Marissa, are there any updates from BOCES?
Sure. So recently, what's being called the New York Workforce Hub had its first meeting. in Syracuse. It's an a group of advanced manufacturing companies from Buffalo to Albany. Dr. Cook was on a panel that discussed both adult education and regional education opportunities for students. So that group will be meeting more often, or will be meeting regularly, I should say. There was a superintendent development program that's timely that Dr. Cook also spoke at. I believe Dr. Desiano from ESM is facilitating that. The Blue Ribbon Commission on Graduations has its next meeting at the BOCES in Cortland, or our Cortlandville office on the 25th, if anyone wants to attend that. Our next meeting is this Thursday at the Liverpool office. Prior to that, we met to discuss our strategic plan. So we met with our administrators and we looked at the BOCES strategic plan, which has 5 key areas that we're focusing on: teaching, engaging all students, creating inclusive environments through DEI, strengthening communication with all of our stakeholders, improving the employee experience, and improving community district family partnerships. So we met with our administrators and talked about some of the next steps that we'd like to see, things that we'd like to do in that regards. One thing we talked about specifically was board members beginning this school year to go out to the district or districts that we represent with some students from those districts to talk about the programs that they're enrolled in, and show districts what their students are accomplishing at BOCES, and get people more familiar with BOCES as it is, because there are still a lot of people who have a misconception about OC and BOCES and the work that we do. So that's something we're going to be working on getting started, and Dr. Cook will be coming around to with the board member and students to talk about that. So I don't know about FM yet, but I will let everyone know when we would like to come, so it's on the schedule. And that was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Marissa. And Isam.
I don't have really anything yet so far, but me and the class president, Zach Mango, have started our student advisory team, and we have our first meeting on Thursday, and I don't really have anything yet right now, but after our meeting, we'll definitely have something.
So how often is the student advisory group planning to meet? And how can we make sure that we're getting feedback from them on a regular basis? Is it through your updates, or have you guys thought about that process?
Through my updates, yeah.
Okay.
And probably like once a week or something.
You're going to be meeting once a week?
Yeah, I don't, once every 2 weeks or something like that.
Once every 2 weeks. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about the student advisory group? Okay. I know we're going to talk about it later with kind of upcoming events, Isam, but we're going to be, one of the things that's coming up is we're going to get a presentation about the cell phone policy, and I think it would be really great to get student input on, how things are working, where the overall perception, maybe just some feedback from different groups within the student body. So if that's something that your advisory group could kind of talk about a little bit, that would be great to get feedback on that. Thank you. Okay. And then we had, the last meeting talked about trying to maybe take the committee reports to on a quarterly basis, and certainly if any committees want to report out more frequently than that, just let me know and we can certainly add you in there. The minutes are always available for board members to take a look at. But I just wanted to double check. I know there's been a lot of conversation regarding audit and finance, and I want to just confirm that we are required to have 3 members on that committee. And so my understanding is we've got Daryl, Dan, and Marissa. And I just wanted to double check we're good on that committee for having membership to make sure we've got it covered, because I know Sarah needs to schedule the next meeting. Okay. If something changes, let me know. Thank you. All right. now we're moving into public comment, item 3.01. My understanding is that there is no one for public comment, which is very disappointing. Nobody wants to change their mind on that from the audience out here? Okay, just checking. All right, then we will move on to item 4.01, proposed executive session. And I do need a motion to go into executive session. For the purpose of a litigation, we have a collective bargaining issue and the employment of particular persons. So can I have a motion, Jason, and a second from Cindy? Thank you. And all in favor? Okay, anybody opposed or abstaining? All right, so for those of you here, we will be coming back. Stay tuned. So we will see you very soon. Thank you for your patience. We are back. And we're moving on to new business. Item 5.01, approval of minutes. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Fayetteville-Manlius Central School District hereby approves the minutes of the meetings held on August 12th, 2024, August 20th, 2024, August 26th, 2024, and September 6th, 2024. Whew, we've met a lot.
You gotta break them all out separate, because people were not,
So my understanding is that it's obviously preference if people want to abstain if they're not there, but that is not required for approval of the minutes. So how does everybody want to handle it?
That is true. You can, you're actually accurate about that.
Okay, so we will break them out. So we're going to, the minutes, this will be August 12th, 2024. Okay, so can I have a motion to approve the minutes of August 12th? Daryl, and it's...
Yes.
Don't know.
I'll pull them up.
Thank you. Okay, so Daryl, do I need a separate motion for every single one? Can we have a motion for one and then? Okay. Second by Chrissy. So for those, all in favor? Anybody opposed or abstaining? Those two. So just, I guess if you guys are, if I'm understanding correctly from past practice, we want to continue this practice of approving the minutes because I know we could put it in consent agenda moving forward. So we'll go through this, but maybe we can discuss if that's something. Okay, be it resolved that we will approve the minutes of the August 20th, 24. So we got, motion by Cindy and Ann, all in approve, favor, yep. Anybody abstaining? Okay, we got 3 abstentions. All right. And now we have August 26th. Okay, we've got Marissa and Chrissy. And then all in favor. Anybody abstaining? This one? Everybody was there? Okay. And then finally, September 6th. Can I get a motion? Marissa and Daryl. And all in favor? Anybody abstaining? Okay. Oh, okay. And Jason and Rebecca. Okay. All right, so 5.02. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Fayetteville-Manlius Central School District hereby acknowledges receipt of the corresponding corrective action plan. May I have a motion? Got Cindy and Marissa. Any discussion? All in favor? Anybody abstaining or opposed? Okay, thank you. Item 5.03, be it resolved that Laurel Chiesa is hereby appointed to execute data protection agreements to ensure compliance with Education Law 2D in collaboration with the Student Data Privacy Consortium of the Central New York Regional Information Center. May I have a motion? Jason, and a second from Cindy. Any discussion? All in favor? Anybody opposed or abstaining? Okay, thank you. Item 5.04. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Fayetteville-Manlius Central School District hereby moves the non-fraternization policy into second reading at the next regular board meeting. May I have a motion, please? Marissa and Ann is second. Any discussion?
Yeah, and I'll follow this up with an email with specific points to the policy committee, but I'm in my read of this, I view this as, I certainly understand the reasons, but it's a very broad brush from one incident covering now the entire district. And I think that what was proposed by NYSBA is very comprehensive. It defines when you should not communicate by various tools in various circumstances. I think that the broader brush that's included in this on the, what page is this? On page 2 in blue of district employees are prohibited from using their personal devices to interact with students is far too broad. There are circumstances where it can be done, where it should be acceptable to be done in certain circumstances. And I think that that's a little bit too draconian for me in light of the circumstances that we're trying to address. I think it's addressed more than adequately in the NYSBA language that's in here without going to that draconian extreme.
So one clarification, and Anna, I'll let you also add in, with that particular sentence, we talked about, because it's sort of divided up there, I think it was intended to be interact with students on social media or text messages, not just, but yes.
Saying I'll just give you an example. Somebody gets injured in a sporting event and the coach is just checking in how, 2 hours after the game, how are you doing?
Yep.
You good?
I know.
Not good. We're
Yep.
checking in with team captains who are entrusted in high school of 18-year-old, 17-year-old students who are entrusted with, we're supposed to be trusting to.
And we did.
To me, it's that there are prescriptions that are in the other part of it. I just think that is more draconian than I would like to see.
So part of it was that all that can be done over email and use of the official
That's what I was going to say.
means of communication by the school. But
So it needs to be reworded. Yeah, so your point is it's not texting a student, it is sending a message through school messenger or whatever to the student. It's not calling the student, it's sending a message through a channel that we can monitor very easy, and that's not creating a private environment or private space between student and child. I'm sorry, student and teacher.
And I don't want to speak for the entire policy committee, but I know we did debate that. And I think it was the spirit using school-sanctioned and sponsored tools and modalities as opposed to, because some of the feedback my office received after the incident this spring was, aren't you monitoring everything? And I mean, there's just, we can monitor what's ours, we can't monitor the world.
But thank you, Dan, if you wanted to send an email to the policy committee, and that's why we wanted to just have it in first reading, so any other, and if anybody else has any questions or comments or concerns about the wording, please do send them along.
Do we get any feedback
Just
from
be-
administrators or teachers? I mean, I just feel like this, to see how this would play out in practice, or if this is overly restrictive for our staff, it would be helpful to just get some input, because we're living on an island with these policies.
It was taken to the August Administrative Council meeting, and as fun as it sounds to wordsmith as a group, we did, and we went through it.
So I'm clear, are we at a minimum in agreement that last sentence as written is not how it's going to live? Because it would be, even if it's a school designated app, it's on their personal device. This says are prohibited from using their personal device to interact with students. Well, there's text messaging through these apps, so even if it's an approved. That's not actually, that's not actually, there are texting capabilities within multiple apps.
Not like regular texting, it's app-approved text.
At a minimum, that would need to be other than through district-approved applications. But I just want to make sure we're at least in agreement that language needs to at least be cleaned.
I don't know that we are in agreement, because I feel as if the policy committee has presented it as you discussed and administrators looked at it, right? So I think Sarah's asking you to send a preferred.
And I will, but I thought that Marissa started that off by saying that needs to be reworded from what it is, and that's coming from policy. So that's.
Well, I
tell me
wasn't at the
whatever.
meeting, to be fair, so.
I was, they're all about fraternizing over there.
Okay, so thank you, and yes, I think it's an important policy, but we certainly want to make sure we're not going too far in another direction too, so thank you.
But just too, the policy, we said we didn't want to fast track it, so to remind the board, that's the whole purpose of having a good conversation in first reading and then tidying things up by second reading. Thank you.
All right, so we need, so we did the motion, so may I have everybody in favor of moving it into second reading? Okay, anybody opposed or abstaining? Okay, so Dan is opposing or abstaining? Opposing, okay, thank you. All right. Item 5.05, amendment to the board meeting schedule. So be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Fayetteville-Manlius Central School District hereby moves the meeting scheduled for October 21st, 2024 to October 28th, 2024, and the November 4th, 2024 meeting to November 18th, 2024. So may I have a motion for that? Chrissy and Dan, and any discussion? November 18th, okay. Any other conflicts that we know of or concerns on that? Okay, great. All in favor? Anybody opposed or abstaining? Okay, thank you. All right, so we are going to table item 5.06. Do I need to do anything on that? Need a motion to table it? Dan? And second from Jason. All in favor of tabling? Okay, and anybody opposed or abstaining? No. All right. And we removed 5.07 already. All right, so 5.08 that Daryl referred to earlier is the NISBA annual meeting resolutions. So this is a discussion item. Daryl, and second.
But
from-
Dan would like to, I think, add to one of the proposals.
What did
so
you say our deadline is?
September 20.
Oh, I got everything else this week. So there's a proposal in here by the Beeville School District. I think it's number 8. Yeah, it's number 8, which talks about, you know, they've got the same situation that we do. They've got really old buildings, and it's more practical in some instances to build new than to repair old, but with maximum cost allowances and aid, it's impractical to build the buildings. And so they got a proposal related to that for funding through building aid for the construction of a new school that would replace one or more outdated or antiquated schools. I would like to see us either offer as an amendment to that or as a separate one to address providing sufficient funding for building aid for a new building that is not necessarily a replacement. So like in our district, for example, if we were to build a new building to expand elementary to deal with the class size issue capacity that we talked about earlier, and this inevitable to come down the pike pre-K situation where if we want to have it in-house, we can't build a building to do that until they're already in-house. So I would like to see us make a proposal that we be able to adjust some version of avoiding the if you build it, they will come, but so that you can fund if they build it, you will come when you've got a designated cohort already like pre-K that you would move into a building.
So I moved it, but it needs a second, and I think that's good discussion. What I suggested to Dan is that I could send him the form for an amendment, and he can then send it to all of us. And as long as we return it
I was gonna ask that, what's the deadline to get
the 20th
the 20th of
September.
September? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this is I know, right? Well, if you have a deadline, you're more apt to do it quickly.
Will
right?
we have to vote to,
Well, that's why I'm thinking if we send it around, maybe can we do that by email?
you can't vote to accept it by email, no? No?
Can we vote?
Of unknown language.
I would be comfortable with that if, so. Okay, so first business, we needed a second to open this conversation, which we'll say is Anne. And great conversation. I think that's a great suggestion. So is all in favor of the approach of adding a resolution that Dan will draft, and so amending.
We had to vote.
Yeah, it just says discussion.
We usually,
I don't know if we usually vote or just reach consensus on these resolutions every year. I wish Sarah was here, but maybe we could.
Mhm. Amend. Yeah. Okay. Do we have consensus? So is it all in favor? Yep. Okay. Yep. So I guess we don't have to vote on this, so we're moving along. Thank you. Okay, so item 6.01, board development. So National School Boards Association Conference is being held April 4th through 6th in Atlanta, Georgia. General registration is open now. Sarah Gridley would like anyone who is interested. Professional development extends beyond just staff members of the district, so it's important for board members to do so as well. So I would encourage anybody who is interested to step forward. Okay, potential considerations for future meetings. So the upcoming item that we have a date on right now is cell phone use. We're going to have a board presentation at our next meeting on October 7th. Which will kind of have some feedback from the conference that I know Mary is attending, and then we have Christy and Marissa from the board, and Dr. Tice are also attending, as well as some others. But also looking at what we're currently doing in all of our buildings, and getting some feedback from different stakeholders. And I hope that USAM is able to get some feedback from some students as well to inform that conversation. And then some of the other items on this list, we just need to pin down some dates, Dr. Tice, so that we can kind of work them into the agenda so that we're...
The Administrative Council is organizing a committee around the school start time, so
Okay.
we're getting volunteers for that as we speak.
So, for the homework policy one, could we give some consideration to putting that in the discussion of equitable grading? So it's not just looking at the homework, because there's a lot more to that. Homework is part of equitable grading policy.
Yeah, that's part of our conversations with Dr. Meredith Madden and the equity audit.
It's changing the name of it to equitable grading process or equitable grading procedure or something like that.
Well, we'll let Dr. Doughton, who is the RI on that, decide how she wants to word it and go forward. So can't wait. Okay. Any other questions or comments on that at this point?
No, I know we're all looking to the Board of Regents in November, so a lot of these things will help get checked off. And, you know, I think it's been great. We've had some preliminary conversations, but
Yeah.
I know more will be forthcoming from Albany.
Okay. I guess the only other thing with regarding to the cell phone use, I know we did get some emails about the screenagers showing. If that is something that, I don't know if the district is considering, or if we should be chatting with the HSAs about.
Well, that's our intent. Is I know in the past, as Dan will remember, we had it as part of the FM Foundation in this very auditorium, and that's part of our principals meeting tomorrow to have them go back and talk with their HSAs.
Oh, okay, great. All right, so item 7.01, future meetings. So next meeting will be external audit focused. 7.02, dates to remember. So homecoming game and parade at the Turf is October 4th at 5:30. Be great if any board members wanted to gather up together for that event.
Playing.
What's that?
Ooh.
And the next day at noon, October 5th, is the Athletic Hall of Fame inductions at noon. Two former administrators, Dr. Martin and Rich Roy, will be inducted at noon.
Great.
They announce at halftime, but I know there's a formal presentation at noon.
Okay, great. All right, so home stretch. We're moving to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda? Marissa and Cindy, all in favor? Anybody opposed or abstaining? Okay, wonderful. And item 10, adjournment. May I have a motion? Marissa and Chrissy, all in favor? Anybody, nobody's opposed. Okay, thank you. Appreciate your time. See you in a couple of weeks.